Welcome to our January 14th show opening. This month we're showing work by John Schirmer, who is a Fairfield artist. And yesterday we did a taping of his work, and today we are having John here at the opening so that he can talk to the people who showed up and just discuss his work with us. And so hopefully you will be able to watch the show that we did yesterday and take a look at each of his pieces. And then today we also have another Fairfield native who is doing a wine tasting and a talk for us. And so this is just a little added benefit for the people who've come to our show this month. And we're doing the wine tasting here at Democratic Design. And please come and see the artwork. It looks wonderful in the store. It's up on the walls just as if you would have it in your home. And a lot of your work it has to do with food and wine and things like that too, doesn't it?
Yes, it's a good subject matter.
Yeah, we all like it.
Yes, we do.
Right. And so then we wanted to incorporate Pat Kessel's knowledge about wine and food into our show too. So thank you very much, Pat.
Welcome.
I've already been sampling a little bit of your wine, and it's good. So.
Actually, it's Drugtown. They're helping sponsor, and so thanks to Drugtown for sharing with us and their distributor quality wine.
Right. We do give you a great big thank you, and let's talk about wine now, wine and food, okay?
You bet.
All right.
All right. Why don't you get everybody's attention?
Okay. Would everyone like to come and listen to the wine tasting?
Hi everybody, my name is Pat Kessel, and I'm going to visit with you tonight about wine and I guess food a little bit. When I was growing up, my dad would on occasion make some wine, and I can remember that musty, grapey smell that would be coming out of the basement on occasion, or maybe out of my uncle's barn. And the wine was put in these gallon jugs, and these jugs would sit around and get all dusty and dirty, and the wine would be the color of gasoline. And every once in a while my dad would, get one out and he'd pour himself a drink, and maybe the wine would be 10 years old, but he would proclaim it good. I'd look and think, boy, it didn't look so good to me, but he said it was good. And when I was a teenager, I maybe snuck a drink or two, and I didn't share his enthusiasm about wine. But when I was in my 20s and I was married, I tried my own hand at making wine and learned a couple of things. First of all, I learned that really wine makes itself. Oh, you fool around with the grapes a little bit, but naturally it wants to ferment and turn into wine. And I also learned that the grapes I was using probably wasn't the same grapes that was in the bottle that I could buy wine. In 1982, I went on a trip to Switzerland, and Susie and I stayed in the Montreux region of Switzerland, which is the wine region of Switzerland. We don't really think of Switzerland as a wine region, but up and down the mountain slopes there was grapevines and vineyards, and so I looked at that and thought, hey, that's kind of cool. Then in 1986, I took a side trip from Lake Tahoe over to San Francisco to Napa Valley, and I was amazed at how rural it was. It was really farmers. Instead of growing corn, no, they were growing grapes, and yeah, there was these wineries that were turning the grapes into wine, but I was just really surprised at how rural it was. And I also I was used to Iowa soil being so black and fertile, and I would look at the Napa soil and it just seemed thin to me, and I thought, how can anything grow in this type of thing? And so because of this interest that I was developing, I took a wine appreciation class at Indian Hills in Ottumwa, and Michael Vineyard, that we all know in Fairfield here, is a great wine educator, and especially with the name of Vineyard. And I took that class, and it was the only class I've ever taken in my life that I was glad to have to repeat. And I repeated it several times and learned a lot about the appreciation of the grape and wine. And since then, Susie and I have been back to Napa Valley many times. We've taken our kids even, and I've taken my son-in-law, and I just drag everybody that'll go with me. I just love that area. I've also been fortunate enough to go to Bordeaux, a region in France, and the Burgundy wine region. And to me, that's added a dimension to drinking a bottle of wine. It's experiencing, where the grape is grown. The French call it the terroir, and it's a term that they use in explaining the wine's complexity. It doesn't mean just the dirt that it's grown in. Oh yeah, it means the soil and the subsoil and the vine itself, and it means the setting and the drainage and the microclimate that grape grows in, and also the culture in making the wine. That's what that term means. It's not, again, just the dirt. And I think that the land itself chooses what crop is best for it. And that's why the different areas of the world, like Bordeaux grows predominantly Cabernet Sauvignon, is that grape thrives there. It tastes the best there because of all those factors that I've already mentioned. In Burgundy, it's the Chardonnay grape for the white Burgundy wine and the Pinot Noir grape for the red. And again, it's just where that type of thing thrives. As you go into the Champagne district, it's a different kind of grape. Again, it's the Pinot Noir grape, a red grape, but it's turned into the white Champagne or blush Champagne sometimes that we drink. And as you go into the German regions, where it touches Alsace-Lorraine in there, it's the Gewürztraminer grape or Riesling grape that really thrives best there. And in other words, wine is not just a commodity like the corn and soybeans that we grow around here. It's really a distinct product from a unique place. And labels on a wine, when you're in the grocery stores and you pick up a wine bottle and you look at it and you go, okay, white wine, or whatever, it's kind of confusing what it means. But as an example, this says what kind of grape it is. Chardonnay. In America, we call the wine by the grape, Chardonnay. In Europe, this would be called a Burgundy, or white Burgundy. They wouldn't call it a Chardonnay. In America, we're really not supposed to call a wine a Burgundy because that's kind of, I'm going to say, copyrighted by France. That's their region. This wine, in addition, it says on the label what year it was made, 1998, and it says where it was grown, Sonoma County. Now, Sonoma County is to the west of Napa Valley, across the mountain range, more toward the ocean. And of course, it says what the winery's name is on it. That's a pretty generic type of wine. In other words, it says Chardonnay grown in Sonoma. As a wine, the more vague where the wine is grown, or the grape is grown, the cheaper the wine. If you pick up a bottle of wine and it says California, as this one does, then it's a cheaper bottle of wine because that grape, or those grapes could come from anywhere in California. But as they start to narrow it down to like Sonoma County, California, it means it's a little bit better wine. It can even go a little further, in addition to saying, like on this one, Napa Valley. You probably notice there's different sizes of bottles. The regular size bottle, the split or half bottle. This is a magnum, or a two bottle size. This one says Napa Valley, but it also says Oakville, which means that's the town or the region or appellation that this grape is grown in. And so as you start narrowing it down, the wine becomes a little more expensive. In addition to that, this one says it's from, Santa Barbara County, and it says, the town that it's close to, and then it says Zaca Vineyards. So that tells us the exact place on earth that these grapes came from. Just maybe from an 80-acre plot or a 30-acre plot. And so it starts to narrow it down. I even have a bottle here that says it came from a certain 8-barrel selection from that vineyard. So it was not only from that place, but it was those 8 barrels that this wine was made from. And so again, as you start going down, the the more they narrow it down, the better the wine is in theory. There's all different kinds of bottles, as I shown you there. This is a Cabernet Sauvignon, and a Cabernet bottle is always shaped like this. So this is a red wine, and the bottle is always shaped with this type of shoulders. Pinot Noir grape is always put in a bottle with rounded shoulders like that.
This big one.
This big one is like really 4 normal bottles. It's a double magnum.
Oh, my. It's a party.
And this is a Malbec grape. Malbec is kind of a, it's not a grape you can go in a grocery store and say, I want a bottle of Malbec. It's usually a blending type of wine. There's 5 different grapes in Bordeaux that they use to blend Bordeaux wines. The primary grapes are Cabernet Sauvignon, and that's the one that's in most of the Bordeaux, or the predominant in Bordeaux wines, as is Merlot grape. And a Merlot bottle is, you know, the same shape as a Cabernet. It's a similar grape. It's just a softer taste or style. This grape, a lot of times, is blended with a Cabernet in Bordeaux, along with a Malbec grape and a Petit Verdot grape, oh gosh, Cabernet Franc. There's 5 different grapes that are blended together to get a Bordeaux style of wine. But again, primarily they're Cabernet and Merlot. In addition to those types of grapes, there's Syrah, and that is grown mostly in the Rhone region in France. This is an American bottle here, but it's that is where the Syrah grape, and also in Australia and South Africa. Can you hand me that blue bottle? This is a German wine. The Germans really like colorful bottles.
That's new. That's
new. Yeah, that's new, Karen. Mm-hmm. And it's a Riesling. Karen hates it. She's German, but it must be a marketing ploy, evidently. But it seems to be working because a lot of ladies are picking this up, and this is right. This is a nice, soft white wine to drink. Oh, let's see, what other types of grapes do we have here? Oh, this one here. This is also a more of a German style of wine, and it's a Gewürztraminer grape, and it's a real spicy or floral type of grape.
Is the port just made out of one grape?
No, actually, the port tonight I'm pouring mostly sweet wines. Most of us wine snobs always talk about the dry wines that we drink, and and that's really what the better wines in the world are made out of, or as a type of dry grape or dry wine. I decided though to pour dessert wines or sweet wines because people like sweet, and I'm pouring a Muscat wine. It's made in California. That's a sweet California wine, a dessert wine, if you will. I'm also pouring Sauternes. Here it is. And a Sauternes is actually a French, it's a white Bordeaux wine. It's south of the town of Bordeaux, and it's kind of in this valley where the mists come in along the river, and they plant Cabernet Sauvignon grapes and Semillon, and these grapes rot, and it intensifies the sweetness, and they pick them at a certain point and squeeze whatever juice is left in them, and it makes an intensely sweet, wonderful dessert wine. Now the French, I was in the town of Sauternes, and I thought, great, I'm going to have a Sauternes, I'm going to have it with some pie at the end of my meal, or a cake or whatever, and the waiter says, no, too much sugar. And he explained to me that the French drink their Sauternes at the beginning of the meal as an aperitif, and typically with their pâté or liver. And it's really, really good that way, and that's why I served it with the liver cheese tonight. In addition, a Sauternes goes great with blue cheese, as does a port, and port is the other sweet dessert wine that I'm pouring tonight. And a port is made from 6 different grapes. And you know what? I don't know that much about port, other than it's from Portugal. And the reason that it ended up the way that it is, the Portuguese would make a wine, but the British would ship it back to England, and to make it last during the trip, because it would turn sour on them, they would put neutral spirits with them, or they would add alcohol so to fortify it so it would last in the trip. And when you add alcohol to something, it brings out the sweetness. And so a port wine typically goes well with walnuts and blue cheese again, and chocolate. And so that's why I have that on the table tonight.
What doesn't go well?
Right. What doesn't go well with chocolate?
I have another question. When you're talking about the different regions,
Mm-hmm.
would a state bottle be comparable to one of these?
Yeah, a state bottled would be kind of like. In America, we don't really call it a state bottle. It's more chateau bottled, which means the chateau owns the winery owns the land. In Europe, it's again, it's more of where the farm is, so to speak. When I was first learning about wine, I would buy wine magazines like the Wine Spectators that I have over there, or I'd read wine books, and I can remember laying in bed at night and I'd read all the different descriptions, how wine writers would describe what the tastes were like. And I can remember, or they would write like the red wines would taste of coffee and licorice and chocolate and tobacco and mint and road tar and bell peppers and blackberries and blueberries and raspberries and cherries and leather and vanilla. And sometimes they would even say damp earth and dried herbs and Asian herbs is another one I've read, or grilled meat, pepper and cedar. All of these terms are used to describe different red wines. And I would just kind of tickle me to read that when I was laying there. And white wines would also have notes of things like butter or lemon or lychee fruit or rosewater, peaches, apricots, melons, pears, butterscotch, apples, minerals, grass, coconut, and floral scents. So that just kind of really got me thinking, boy, I wonder what this would taste like. Obviously, though, one bottle of wine is not going to taste like all those things. You're not going to get tobacco and road tar and mineral scents and grass and cherries all out of the same bottle of wine. But the more complex a wine is, the more notes that you'll get. Now, you won't pick up a bottle of wine, pour it in the glass and go, chocolate. That's not what it is. It's just a note, or just a somewhere in the background, it reminds you of that. And that's really what you're looking for. And the more notes that you get, the more complex the wine is. To enhance the experience, wine should be served at the right temperature. And people find red wines bitter mostly because when something's too cold, cold enhances the bitterness in your taste buds. And warmer temperatures increase the impact of sweetness. And so if there is some sweetness in a red wine, it's better if you serve it. Now, when I say warm, I don't mean boil it. That isn't what I'm talking about. Warm is cool room temperature, maybe 60 degrees. And at that temperature, you get out of it everything that you can out of that bottle of wine. You should drink what you like. If you pick up a glass of wine and you think it's good, you know what? It is good. You don't have to make anybody else happy, just yourself. Never apologize or be ashamed of, well, I just like sweet wine. That's okay. That's fine. Preference for wine is just as varied as preference for art or music. You're not right or wrong. It's just you like what you like.
Let's hear it for the artist.
Yeah. Every glass of wine that we drink, I like to, when I'm drinking a glass of wine, and let's say it's a 1995, I like to think that represents that whole year, that whole summer or growing season You know, it's that summer in the glass. And it kind of deepens the experience. We can pick it up and throw it straight down, you know, and gulp it down. Or you can pick it up and you can look at it, maybe even think of what you were doing in 1994 or 95. Look at it, look at the color. You smell it. And what do you smell? What does it remind you of? And then you taste it. You can taste it however you want, you know, you can chew it if you feel like it. You get more taste doing that. You can sip it. And the main thing is about wine, you talk about it. You know, you sit there and you talk about it with your friends while you're eating. And so it enhances that whole experience. And I like to remember wine kind of like Galileo said, wine is really sunlight held together by water. And so again, enjoy the art, enjoy the wine, and thank you for being here.
I just want to say one thing. I want to thank everyone.